Okay. All right. All right. Welcome everybody. So we'll be doing question two, Michael Madness. Um, so this problem is an environment diagram problem. A lot of the problems in this, or the smaller problems in this problem, can kind of be answered by going through this. Um, but yeah, we can kind of start off with what we can see. So we know that they give us three different frames, our global frame, our F1, and our F2. And we can kind of refer to our code here. So it appears that we have a function called mic, which takes in first and second. Um, we also notice inside of mic, we have another function, hail, within our mic function. And then we also have another hail, which is in our global frame, which is a lot of some of the problems later on will cover that. And then we have our CS and EE objects. Yeah, this is like reflected in our global frame, our mic, our hail, our CS, and our EE. Now the question is what does our CS point to, which is our first question A. So fill in the space denoted by A. Remember to use correct syntax when writing your answer. So we want to make sure we want to know what this pointer CS goes to. So at the moment, let's just say let's create a list here. So let's say this is A. Okay. So at the moment, when we run this code and we get to this point, our CS is just our CS like this right here. And then our EE is 8888, which is also given to us before. Um, so when we run the rest of the code, we run a function call mic of CS and EE as the parameters. So um, within the function, we have first and second arguments, and our CS will point to our first will point to our CS, and then our second will point to our EE, which is reflected through these two arrows here. And yeah, so we can go start off in the function and see what will happen. So if length of first is less than length of second, we first dot append the zeroth element of second. So again, our first points to our A right here, which is our mystery, and then our second points to our 88. So the length of this first one is currently just CS, which means the length is 1. While the length of this list right here, which is what our second points to, is 2. So this conditional is true. Our length of first is less than length of second, which means that we append first, which is this right here. We append first with the zeroth element of second, which is this 88 right here. So our new list, our new A will look like that for now. And now we go on to the next line of code. If the length of first is equals to the length of second. So at first glance, this seems like it would be false, but we have to know that we appended our CS list or our first list, which means that first is actually the length of 2 now, as we can see here. So this conditional would be true again because first is length of 2, and then second is also length of 2, which means first dot extend second. So we extend our list to include second. And we can go through the rest of the code, and it appears that we don't um, extend or append or um, change anything of our list later on. So the answer to our CS object would be the list of the CS 88, 88, 88, and close the brackets. And that would be our answer. Actually, I'll keep that up for now. Okay, moving on to question B. What is the function or object denoted by B? So we can identify B here. So, remember in an environment diagram, within our frame, we always want to look at things within our frame. So although we have two Hale functions. The one referring to here would be the one in our F1 frame instead of our mic function. So that would be this one right here. And yeah, so our B, first, we know that since this is a function, it wouldn't be a list object. Um, Now looking at these two answers, we know that the parent would be F1 and not global because this one is referring to the one in our F1 frame. So that is why the answer would be the fourth option and not third option. Okay, moving on to question C. Fill in the spaces for C. So let's see, what is C? C would be our return value um, for F1. So when we call this, when we call mic of CS of mic and put input CS and EE, our return value would be hail of, I guess this first points to CS, this second points to EE. So since we return a function, we have to go back into our code and look at our function here and see what gets executed. So we know that our first pointer and our second pointer point to these two respectively. However, we see that our local variables inside of Hail kind of, I guess, swap the names of our first and second. So second is first and first is second now, which is a little confusing, but we know how to navigate this. So when we return the zeroth element of second, we're actually referring to the zeroth element of second inside of our Hail frame, which means it's actually the pointer, the first pointer of this right here, or of our A, or of what CS points to. So the zeroth element of that would be CS. Okay, now the first element of that would be 88, which is this one. And then we now check it if it is true that is equal to the zeroth element of CS, which is CS, and then plus the first element of EE, which is this right here. So we can see this is true. So our return value will be true. Okay. Now moving on to D. What is the value denoted by D? So we can look here. What is D? D is this right here. So our F2 frame hail, which hail would this one be? So this hail would actually be this one right here, the one that we've been utilizing. Um, that's because the hail in the global frame actually doesn't ever get used in our call in this instance. Um, the only hail that gets used is this, and that's why it opens up a new F2 frame. So therefore, since we're referring to this hail, our parent would be F1 and not the rest. Okay. Now for question E, what is the variable pointer pair denoted by E? So what is our E? E is this right here. So as I mentioned before, I guess the names of our arguments seemingly get swapped when we call our return statement here, because of this right here. Okay, so that means that the first variable in our our hail F2 hail would be second. So if I kind of drew this out here, or sorry, it'd be like second, and then it would be pointing to something. So that makes it so that these are not correct because our local variable second comes first. Um, and let's look at the other answers. So second pointing to a list object denoted by A. So we return Hela first. This first is referring to this first, which is referring to CS, which is A. And that's why this answer is correct. But just to confirm if this the final answer is incorrect, second pointing to the list object 8888, which is this object right here, that would be incorrect because The second object in Hail is referring to the first object in the parent frame, which is referring to CS in the global frame. And yeah, that is why that answer is not correct. Okay, and for our question F, what is the variable pointer pair denoted by F? So similarly, we're looking at F here. Now we know that this one has to be first, or the local first within F2. Now we know that our return statement inputs second as our second parameter for Hail, which is the second here, which is EE in our global frame. So we kind of look where the pointers go to for each frame to kind of help us navigate through these kind of questions. But yeah, so this second becomes the first of our F2 frame. So if we work backwards, first goes to second in our F1 frame, which goes to EE in our global frame, which is kind of shown by our arrows here. So this EE goes to here, this one also goes to here, and therefore F also goes to there. And that is why it is first pointing to the object 88. And these ones would be incorrect.